The truth just exploded in Congress, a bombshell moment that shattered the political theater, exposing a lie so brazen it will make your jaw drop. This wasn't just a debate, it was a public execution of deceit, live for the entire nation to witness. At the center of this firestorm, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calm, precise, and armed with undeniable proof. Facing her, Marjorie Taylor Green, her usual defiance crumbling as the truth closed in. The stakes? The very soul of American politics, and we have the footage. Every single damning second. You need to see this. To truly grasp the magnitude of this political earthquake, we must understand the forces that collided. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is not your typical politician. She's a voice forged in the crucible of real-world struggle, a public defender who spent years witnessing systemic injustices, the quiet desperation of those crushed by a system designed to protect the powerful. She saw the tears of families, the despair in the eyes of the vulnerable. This fueled her unwavering commitment to justice, a commitment that transcends partisan lines. Her intellect is sharp, her preparation meticulous, her integrity unyielding. She doesn't grandstand. Her power lies in dissecting complex issues with surgical precision, exposing uncomfortable truths with a calm that is more unsettling than any shout. She carries the weight of her constituents' struggles, their hopes and frustrations into every debate. This is not a game for her. It is a sacred duty, a solemn promise to those she represents. She fights for the voiceless, for those directly impacted by decisions made in these very rooms. Her dedication is not born of ambition, but of a deep-seated belief in America's promise, a promise often unfulfilled. She knows confronting entrenched power demands courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to facts. And she was ready. Ready to stand firm, even when political winds threatened to blow her off course. Now consider the formidable figure of Marjorie Taylor Green. For years, she has cultivated an image of unyielding defiance, a champion of the America First movement, a master of the viral soundbite. She thrives on outrage, feeding off her loyal base, transforming every controversy into an opportunity for attention. Yet beneath the bombast, the carefully constructed persona of the fearless warrior, whispers have grown louder. A disconnect from reality, a reliance on manufactured controversies, a profound disinterest in actual governance. Her power, it seems, is built on grievance, a curated narrative of victimhood, and a relentless assault on institutions. Public perception, amplified by a partisan media echo chamber, paints her as a fearless warrior. But for those who look beyond the headlines, a different picture emerges. A politician increasingly isolated, her influence waning as her issues unravel. The stage was set for a fundamental challenge to political discourse. The air crackled with unspoken tension, months of simmering resentment and ideological warfare converging. Green's ascent was marked by audacious, often conspiratorial claims, embracing controversy for relevance. She mastered the outrage cycle, turning public appearances into performances for her base. Her supporters saw a truth teller, critics a dangerous demagogue. This dichotomy amplified tension, making her appearances flashpoints. The fractured political climate bent around her, drawing in figures like Donald Trump, whose populist defiance echoed her rhetoric. Even Elon Musk, a titan of industry, found himself in her orbit, his name eventually becoming entangled in controversies she fueled. This was not merely a clash of opponents, it was a collision of worlds, a battle for the soul of public discourse. The events leading up to this dramatic confrontation had been building for months, a slow, inexorable march towards a breaking point. The political landscape had become increasingly volatile, marked by a relentless barrage of attacks on democratic institutions, a growing disregard for established norms, and a disturbing embrace of misinformation. The administration, under the sway of a populist agenda, had systematically implemented policies that, while ostensibly aimed at strengthening the nation, had in reality inflicted deep wounds on its most vulnerable citizens. Healthcare access was eroding, social safety nets were fraying, and the very fabric of civil society seemed to be under assault. Each new policy announcement, each controversial statement added another layer to the mounting tension, creating a palpable sense of unease across the country. Public trust in government was at an all-time low, replaced by a pervasive cynicism and a growing sense of helplessness. The air in Washington was thick with rumors, whispers of backroom deals, and the constant hum of cable news dissecting every perceived slight. Congresswoman Crockett, along with a handful of other principled voices, had been tirelessly working to expose the true cost of these policies, to bring to light the human suffering hidden beneath the layers of political rhetoric. They had presented data, shared personal stories, and issued urgent warnings, but their voices often seemed to be drowned out by the relentless noise of the outrage machine. The media, too, struggled to navigate this treacherous terrain, often finding itself caught between the need to report on the sensational and the imperative to uphold journalistic integrity. The public, bombarded by conflicting narratives, grew increasingly disoriented, struggling to distinguish fact from fiction. The stage for this particular confrontation was a congressional hearing, ostensibly convened to discuss matters of national importance. But for those who understood the underlying dynamics, it was clear that this was more than just a formal proceeding. It was a battleground, a crucible where the future of American democracy would be tested. The very air in the hearing room felt heavy, charged with the unspoken expectations of a nation desperate for clarity, for truth, for a moment of genuine accountability. The formal setting, with its polished wood and stern portraits, only served to heighten the drama, creating a stark contrast between the gravity of the issues at hand and the often farcical nature of the political theater unfolding within its walls. Every gaze, every subtle shift in posture, every hushed whisper carried an unspoken weight, a silent acknowledgement of the profound implications of what was about to transpire. The stakes, already high, seemed to climb with every passing second, encompassing not just the careers of those involved, but the very principles upon which the nation was founded. The future of millions of Americans, their access to health care, their economic security, their very sense of dignity hung in the balance. This was not merely a political skirmish. It was a fight for the soul of a nation, a battle for the heart of its values. The confrontation began subtly, as most seismic shifts do. Marjorie Taylor Green, with her characteristic blend of bluster and theatricality, attempted to seize control of the narrative, her voice cutting through the formal proceedings like a dull knife. Her initial salvo was a thinly veiled attack, a dismissive comment, perhaps a condescending smile, designed to assert dominance and derail the opposing argument. Her posture, initially one of supreme confidence, betrayed a slight stiffness, a hint of underlying anxiety, a subtle tension in her shoulders. But Congresswoman Crockett, ever composed, met the provocation with a calm that was almost unnerving. A deliberate pause, a slow, measured breath, a subtle shift in her posture. These were the only outward signs of her preparation, her inner resolve. She allowed the silence to hang in the air, a silent challenge to Green's bluster, before delivering her response. It was not a shout, not an insult, but a meticulously crafted statement, each word chosen with surgical precision, each phrase a carefully aimed dart. You could almost feel the collective intake of breath in the room, the murmurs that rippled through the gallery as the weight of Crockett's words began to sink in. Green's initial arrogance gave way to a flicker of surprise, a slight widening of the eyes, a nervous adjustment of her microphone, a quick glance at her notes. The carefully constructed facade of control began to show its first hairline cracks, a visible tremor in her hand as she gripped the podium. As the exchange progressed, the tension escalated, each point and counterpoint a hammer blow against the other's narrative. Green, accustomed to dominating every interaction, found herself increasingly on the defensive. Her voice, once booming, grew shriller, her gestures more agitated, her words tumbling out in a desperate torrent. She attempted to interrupt, to deflect, to challenge the very sources of Crockett's information, but each attempt was met with the same unwavering calm, the same relentless pursuit of truth. Crockett, with the precision of a seasoned prosecutor, laid out a damning indictment of the very policies Green championed. She presented irrefutable evidence, poll numbers showing a collapsing base of support for Trump's agenda, a stark contrast to the fervent loyalty Green proclaimed. She cited specific policies detailing how they systematically stripped healthcare from millions, cut food assistance for vulnerable families, and defunded critical agencies like the NIH and EPA. These weren't abstract figures. They were human lives, real families struggling under the weight of political decisions made in the name of a distorted ideology. The atmosphere in the room grew palpably thicker, a silent tension that seemed to vibrate with every word. Murmurs spread through the gallery, hushed whispers of disbelief and recognition. The sharp clicks of cameras became more frequent, capturing every subtle shift in expression, every telling gesture. A pen perhaps dropped to the floor, its small clatter echoing disproportionately in the charged silence, only to be ignored as all attention remained fixed on the unfolding drama. Even the usually stoic moderators seemed to stiffen, their posture betraying a growing unease as the confrontation spiraled beyond the usual bounds of political decorum. The air crackled with unspoken questions, with the weight of unacknowledged truths. And then came the moment that sent a collective gasp through the room, a moment that would reverberate across the nation and beyond. Green, cornered and increasingly desperate, resorted to a personal attack, a petty insult designed to provoke a reaction, to drag the debate into the gutter. Her words, sharp and venomous, hung in the air, a desperate attempt to regain control through personal degradation. But Crockett, with a masterful display of composure, turned the tables. She didn't engage in the mudslinging. Instead, she held up a rhetorical mirror, allowing Green's own absurdity to reflect back on her. The room fell silent, a stunned hush as the full weight of the moment settled. The exchange, already a viral sensation, became an instant meme, a symbol of the intellectual and moral bankruptcy of a certain brand of politics. Crockett didn't just regain the floor, she owned it, her calm resolve a stark contrast to Green's unraveling composure. She then began to weave in personal narratives, stories of real people impacted by the very policies Green so vehemently defended. A single mother struggling to afford insulin after healthcare cuts, her voice cracking with emotion as she described the impossible choices she faced. A veteran facing homelessness due to defunded support programs, his dignity stripped away by a system that had promised to protect him. A child going hungry because of reduced food assistance, their innocent eyes reflecting the harsh realities of a broken system. These weren't statistics, they were human faces, human struggles, brought to life with an emotional resonance that cut through the political rhetoric like a laser. The emotion in Crockett's voice, though controlled, was palpable, lending an undeniable weight to her words, transforming abstract policy into visceral reality. Green's face, already flushed with frustration, paled further, a sickly gray spreading across her features. Her hands, which had been nervously fidgeting, now trembled visibly, her fingers clenching and unclenching. Her eyes darted, unable to meet Crockett's steady gaze, a clear sign of her discomfort, her growing panic. She attempted to interrupt, her voice rising in a desperate attempt to regain control, but her words were lost in the rising tide of outrage and the growing murmurs of the audience, a wave of dissent that seemed to engulf her. The silence that followed was deafening, a profound acknowledgement of the truth that had just been laid bare. Crockett, her voice unwavering, her gaze steady, simply allowed the truth to speak for itself. There was no gloating, no triumphalism, just the quiet satisfaction of a truth finally revealed, a victory for integrity over artifice. The verdict was delivered not by a judge or jury, but by the undeniable weight of the evidence, by the raw, visceral reaction of those who witnessed it, a collective understanding that transcended words. The climax arrived with a quiet, devastating precision. As Green continued to deflect, to cling to her worn-out talking points, her voice growing hoarse with desperation, Crockett delivered the final irrefutable blow. She unveiled the adulterated photo, a blatant attempt by Green to manipulate public perception, to distort the truth for political gain. The image, stark and undeniable, was displayed for all to see, a stark testament to the lengths to which some would go to maintain their narrative, regardless of the facts. This wasn't just a misstep. It was a betrayal of public trust, a deliberate act of deception, a calculated assault on the very concept of truth. The room erupted in murmurs, a collective gasp of disbelief, followed by a stunned silence. Green's face, already flushed with frustration, paled, a sickly gray spreading across her features. Her eyes darted, unable to meet the gaze of the audience. Her hands trembled, a visible tremor running through her frame. She attempted to interrupt, to deny, but her words were lost in the rising tide of outrage, a wave of public condemnation that seemed to engulf her. The silence that followed was deafening, a profound acknowledgement of the truth that had just been laid bare. Crockett, her voice unwavering, her gaze steady, simply allowed the truth to speak for itself. There was no gloating, no triumphalism, just the quiet satisfaction of a truth finally revealed, a victory for integrity over artifice. The verdict was delivered not by a judge or jury, but by the undeniable weight of the evidence, by the raw, visceral reaction of those who witnessed it, a collective understanding that transcended words. This moment, a single powerful image, seemed to encapsulate the entire struggle, the desperate clinging to falsehoods versus the unyielding power of reality. It was a visual mic drop, a moment of undeniable triumph for truth over deception, a turning point that would forever be etched in the annals of political history. The aftermath was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, clips of the exchange flooded social media, exploding across TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Hashtags like anti-MTG Meltdown and Crockett for Truth trended worldwide, each click, each share, amplifying the message, transforming a congressional hearing into a global phenomenon. Memes, sharp and satirical, proliferated, turning Green's every gaffe into a symbol of her unraveling, a testament to the power of collective humor in the face of absurdity. Traditional media, initially caught off guard, quickly scrambled to cover the story, their headlines screaming of political earthquakes and the collapse of a carefully constructed image. Analysts debated the implications, pundits dissected every word, but the message was clear. The MAGA machine, once seemingly invincible, was showing deep, undeniable cracks, its foundations crumbling under the weight of its own contradictions. The viral spread was unprecedented, reaching corners of the internet that rarely engaged with political discourse. People who had long been disengaged, disillusioned by the constant bickering and manufactured outrage, found themselves drawn into the drama, captivated by the raw authenticity of the confrontation, a refreshing change from the usual political theater. The comments sections overflowed with expressions of shock, anger, and a renewed sense of hope, a testament to the power of a single moment to ignite a collective awakening. This wasn't just news, it was a cultural phenomenon, a moment that transcended partisan lines and spoke to a deeper yearning for integrity and accountability, a demand for truth that could no longer be ignored. The impact resonated far beyond the political elite. Ordinary Americans, tired of the endless drama and the blatant disregard for their struggles, found a voice in Jasmine Crockett. Emails poured into congressional offices from around the globe, expressing fear, frustration, and a desperate plea for genuine leadership, a cry for help from those who felt abandoned by their representatives. The confrontation became a rallying cry, a symbol of hope for those who felt unheard, a testament to the power of truth in a world drowning in disinformation. For Green, the consequences were swift and brutal. Her public image, already tarnished, suffered irreparable damage. Her credibility eroded with each passing hour. Allies, once staunch, began to distance themselves, sensing the shifting winds of public opinion, the growing tide of public disapproval. The carefully cultivated narrative of strength and defiance crumbled under the weight of undeniable facts in a public that was finally seeing through the spectacle, recognizing the hollowness of her claims. For Crockett, it was a moment of profound validation. Her social media following soared, her voice amplified, her message resonating with a public hungry for authenticity and integrity. She became a symbol of a new kind of leadership, one rooted in truth, empathy, and a fierce commitment to justice, a beacon of hope in a turbulent political landscape. The event sparked a nationwide conversation, not just about the specific policies debated, but about the very nature of political discourse, the role of truth in public life, and the responsibility of elected officials to serve the people, not just their own agendas. It was a wake-up call for many, a stark reminder that democracy, fragile as it is, requires constant vigilance and a willingness to fight for its core principles, to defend the very foundations of our society. In the end, the confrontation in the halls of Congress was more than just a political skirmish. It was a profound lesson in the enduring power of truth. It laid bare the uncomfortable reality that leadership is not about spectacle, nor is it about empty rhetoric or the relentless pursuit of power at any cost. It is, fundamentally, about service, about responsibility, and about an unwavering commitment to the well-being of the people. The carefully constructed facade of hypocrisy, no matter how grand or how loudly proclaimed, will inevitably crumble when confronted with unvarnished facts and the quiet courage of integrity. This event serves as a stark reminder. In a world saturated with noise and distraction, where truth is often treated as a negotiable commodity, the responsibility falls to each of us to remain vigilant, to question, to seek, to discern, and most importantly, to never ever be silent in the face of injustice. The actions of one brave individual, armed with nothing but facts and conviction, can indeed ignite a movement, inspire a generation, and ultimately reshape the very landscape of our shared future. The long-term implications of this single hearing will undoubtedly reverberate for years to come, influencing future elections, shaping public policy, and perhaps even redefining the very essence of what it means to be a public servant in America. It underscored the vital importance of a free and independent press, of robust public discourse, and of an engaged citizenry willing to hold its leaders accountable. This story, though dramatic, is not an isolated incident. It is a testament to the ongoing struggle for truth and integrity in our political landscape. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there are voices willing to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo, and to fight for a more just and equitable society. The echoes of that gavel, the hushed murmurs of the crowd, and the unwavering voice of Congresswoman Crockett serve as a powerful reminder that the fight for democracy is never truly over. It is a continuous process, demanding our constant attention, our unwavering commitment, and our collective courage. It is a legacy passed down through generations, from the founding fathers to the civil rights leaders, a torch that must be carried forward by each new generation. The battle for truth is fought not just in the halls of power, but in every home, every community, every heart. It is a battle that requires not just intellectual rigor, but moral courage, a willingness to stand up for what is right, even when it is unpopular or difficult. And it is a battle that ultimately determines the kind of nation we will leave for our children and grandchildren. If you believe in the power of truth, if you are ready to stand with those who fight for what is right, then like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story. Because in the ongoing battle for truth and accountability, every single voice, every single action truly matters. Join us next time as we continue to unravel the complex tapestry of power and politics, bringing you the stories that truly shape our world. Your engagement is our strength, and together, we can ensure that the truth always finds its way into the light.